Hi, welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and thanks for watching. Well, they may be gone, but let me assure you, they are never forgotten. The who in this case, stick around, and we'll tell you in a moment.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Well, who is not around and not forgotten? Well, it's the Pennsylvania legislature. We're going to take a look at some unfinished business with a couple of our friends who are, come on, they're experts. They cover the legislature. They follow it carefully. We'll have a little energy update following that to take a look at what happened with the big energy legislation that passed before the legislature went home for. Gentlemen, first of all, let's go here. Gene Barr, Vice President for Government and Public Affairs, Pennsylvania Chamber. Jim Redmond, Vice President, Senior Vice President, Hospital and Healthsystem Association of PA. I got those titles out. All right. They've gone, but they weren't around very much. Gee, 6, 9, 10 days? Or
not in the fall, not that much, and very little. The House has got some days scheduled after the election. There's a lot of debate over whether or not they'll really fulfill those. The Senate's coming back for 2 days for mainly perfunctory issues, and not really a lot of substance to come in after. Of course, a lot of the reformers for years have asked for no sine die either.
Yeah. So you think it's a combination where their legislature is afraid to come back, that they'll get beaten up by the reformers, or do you think they're just as happy to get out of Dodge right now and not face some of these important problems that this state
It's really the
faces?
latter, but that's not unique. I mean, this is generally the pattern that the legislature follows before a major general election anyway, Terry.
Yeah, look, both of you, you've been, you work with the legislature. You know most of these people. You spend a good bit of your time there. How serious, Gene, I'll start with you, is what everyone is calling Pennsylvania's next impending crisis, and that could be a $2 billion shortfall in next year's state budget. The 2 Senate appropriation chairs leaving, retiring. One because he faces some legal problems. Right. Senator Fumo, Senator Armstrong from Lancaster County. Tell me, Gene, is this budget deficit situation for real?
I believe it is, and this has been coming for a while yet, and it's one of the reasons why we and others have expressed some concern over the growth in state spending. We believe that so far for the first quarter, state revenues are running about $270 million or so behind. That was before the activities of this month, and I think that can accelerate that. So, yes, I think there's some real serious concern, and it certainly makes no sense to wait until next May or June. I think the governor has gone in and said we're going to do this. Others have asked for much more reduction in terms of what the spending is.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem, Jim Redmond, as though the governor is going to call them back anytime soon. And it looks like, if anything, if we have a shortfall, it might wait until January to get through about half the fiscal year to decide. But a $2 billion deficit, when we get into deficits like that, it takes the so-called rainy day fund. They use that, and then, what they've done in 82 and I guess 91, which is raise taxes, right?
Yeah. This will be the dominant issue in 2009, Terry. And I think things will kick off around the first week in February when the governor makes his budget address.
You think it can wait that long?
Well, Senator Scarnati, who's the president pro tempore of the Senate, has called for an immediate meeting of his colleagues in the other 3 caucuses to talk about this.
I'm smiling because did they ask Governor Rendell to come to that meeting? I mean, you get the point. Is this the legislature trying to, we're going to, after this election, right, we go into Governor Rendell, and it happened to Ridge, and, of course, he left. It happened to Kate. Happens to all of them. Is this the legislature trying to get a little more antsy or a little more, control from the governor?
Well, following history, it is.
Yeah.
I mean, generally, the second half of a governor's second term is pretty lame duck, and I think we're in that period of time.
Yeah. Now, there are a couple of things. I want to talk about the health care situation with you in a moment, but I want to talk to, I think, one of the more important issues that they left unresolved. No doubt, no argument, we got a very serious problem with roads, bridges, and mass transit. It is huge. 1.7 billion a year by an independent commission. They say that's what we need. We sit here now, Where does
We
it
have
all
nothing.
stand?
You're absolutely right.
Where does
I mean,
it all
the things
stand?
that were on the table, I-80, which had been passed,
Right.
it's been knocked down by the Fed. Can't toll I-80 for the purposes that you've cited. The other one, the $12.1 billion that was put on the table by another group to lease the turnpike. That fell off. And in this environment, in terms of what's going on in financial markets, who knows what happens when and if they ever come back. And I think those are legitimate concerns. We know that we need infrastructure. It's a very proper role for government to take. And right now, there's no viable options. Our organization actually supports reasonable motor fuel tax increases because they're user fees. But there's no...
Does that generate enough money, do you think?
Each penny does about $50 million a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's about all that it
Yeah, I
does.
mean, you know, leasing the turn. We had all these options
They're all
on
out there.
on the table. I mean, Jim, I want to come back to you in another regard, but I mean, look, you have hospitals scattered all over the state, play a very important role in providing health care. I mean, even the infrastructure and the ability to get folks to and from hospitals and, you know, bad emergency medical services, that has to be a problem for all Pennsylvanians, not just, you know, more narrowly focused in the business community.
No question, and it's also critical in terms of retaining and attracting employers in this state. That's one of the things that they look at, and as Gene pointed out, it's one of the critical aspects that Pennsylvania government has got to address.
But before we go to break, they've been working on this for a year. They passed one bill, law, toll Route 80, that's out. I mean, this is a long time. This is not like this has come up yesterday or a month ago, even a year ago.
All the options are out there. And, you know, it's a case of, I hate to say it, it's just going to have to be, there's political pain no matter which one you take. We're going to have to take one because we can't continue to do this, continue on the same road, no pun intended, where we've gone.
All right, we'll be back in a moment. I want to ask Jim Redmond. We got some important decisions. Some were made and some not made in the healthcare area. You'll stay with us, and we'll find out more about that following these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Pennsylvania Medical Society, doctors and patients, preserve the relationship. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association, business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Hi, welcome back to the program. I'm chatting with Gene Barr and Jim Redmond, regular contributors. They come in and help us understand what's going on in the legislature. All right, Jim Redmond, I want to talk to you about two or three things that interrelate. We have Governor Rendell's plan to cover more Pennsylvanians. Start out 100,000, went to 225. In the end, they were down to, what, 120, 125,000. No sale. We also have this difficulty that doctors with getting this a state-approved plan that would help them with their medical liability coverage, is sort of Medigap coverage, that not approved. Where does all this stand? Fit the pieces together.
Well, clearly the administration and legislative leaders really tried to narrow the gap and try to reach a compromise. But I think
on the uninsured.
On the uninsured, as well as dealing with the so-called M-Care abatement, with the state subsidy that goes to help doctors stay in the state to help them out on medical liability costs.
Now, let me ask you, that was a huge problem 5 or 6 years ago. It seems like it's still a problem, a little less of a problem maybe. Is that why they're a little less?
I think the medical liability situation has stabilized in the state.
Stabilized, good word.
But we're still much higher than some other states and don't have some of the reforms that other states have enacted. But I think the events of the state's growing fiscal concern really created a barrier for the governor and legislative leaders to come together. A real recognition on the part of legislative leaders that they plan to be here a lot longer than Governor Rendell.
Right.
And a real reluctance, both Republicans and Democrats, saying this is now not the time to impose what was really a $3 billion spending package over the next 5 years.
Yeah. Well, if we go back to this sort of the relationship, when we get into these deficits, we rarely see no programs enacted. They barely hang on to the old programs, trying to save. And then we get into this big debate about how we fund the budget and whether or not we have tax hikes. Right. In the last 2 recessions, we've had tax hikes. Now, some argue that's good, some argue that's bad. You would argue that's bad, I think, particularly the last tax hike we had of some
I would argue I would. In 91, I think that arguably when we moved up business taxes significantly, very significantly, Pennsylvania has arguably never recovered from that. Our gross domestic product is still one half the national average, not one half the best performers. A lot of that's due to the fact we have the second highest corporate net income tax rate in the country, arguably the world. We have to be very cautious about how we proceed here, and we have to very carefully look at spending. Go back to what Jim said. I think that there were a lot of good thoughts and a lot of thought given to the fact we ought not take this on at this point. We've seen the evidence of what happens in Massachusetts, where these programs typically cost more than we think they do. It's the last thing we can afford given the climate that we have right now.
Jim, you know, Pennsylvania is a little different than some of the states in that we do have a high proportion of people who are covered. The figure that keeps in my head, and you'll correct me, is about 92% of our folks have health coverage already.
That's correct.
So 8% don't. Is it because so many people are covered that we don't have as much pressure maybe on the legislature assisting the governor in his effort? I mean, you think that plays a role in that?
That has had a factor in all of this, that this problem isn't as great in Pennsylvania as it is elsewhere. However, if you are without health insurance and have got a major health problem, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So it is one in which a lot of folks have indicated that Pennsylvania ought to step back and take a look at how can we encourage more employers to provide coverage.
Yeah, I want to ask you about another. We've done some shows on this. There's a government entity known as the Pennsylvania Healthcare Cost Containment Council, and they put out these reports, you know, on costs of health care, particularly hospitals. It's more than hospitals, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, that was created by the legislature, state law. That was not re-upped, is that correct, in this dispute over all these health care?
Right. That legislation expired at the end of June.
Okay.
The governor reauthorized it through November, and that issue is still pending.
So if they don't come
unresolved.
back, does it end? I mean, at least temporarily, it won't work?
Theoretically, I think everybody kind of believes that the governor will extend it.
Extend it by executive action.
Two state senators just today announced that they plan to reintroduce legislation to reauthorize it in January.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's something we strongly support. The problem becomes, as Jim knows, that because it's statutorily created, what effect does an executive order have on HC4's ability to collect the data?
Jim, what does it do? Tell our viewers. We have
essentially it collects information from hospitals, ambulatory surgical centers on the cost and quality of care provided.
Now,
available.
Now, you all were supporters of that, right? I mean,
yes.
You were. I mean, you got involved in it, and you think this does consumers a lot of good, right?
We believe that transparency is good, and information like this helps consumers, but it also helps healthcare providers judge where they are from a cost and quality standpoint.
All right, great update. All right, the legislature did some things in energy early in the year, did not do some things. We'll check that out in a moment following these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the State System of Higher Education. 14 state-owned universities. The state system is the largest provider of higher education in Pennsylvania. And by the Hospital and Healthsystem Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to Pennsylvania Newsmakers. Well, joining me now is Jan Jarrett. She's the president and CEO of PennFUTURE. We call Jan in frequently to chat about things on energy and the environment. Jan, welcome.
Thank you.
All right,
Karen, happy
look,
to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you. Look, I want you to help us out here. We're going into the winter months, and we're going to have all this pressure on I can just see the electric meters going crazy as it gets colder.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this before. I want to talk about something that one energy company is doing. I don't know if others, if they are, you can tell me. They're phasing in a plan where, because the regulations on how much electric companies can charge elapses, we expect energy rates to go up. Do I got that right?
That's exactly right.
And we call that deregulation.
Well, that's the rate cap expiration.
Okay. Go ahead. Explain that. Explain that.
When the electric utilities, when electric retail competition came in, there was a deal made with the electric utilities to get them on board. And part of that deal included capping rates on consumers' electric rates for now 12 years.
And all scheduled to go off?
In the PP&L territory, January 1st, 2010. 2010, that's coming
And
up. In the PICO service territory, January 1st, 2011.
And they're the
following year. They're the two big ones.
They're the two big ones.
In the state, yeah. And so the rate caps will expire.
Okay. And what's going to go up?
The electricity rates are predicted to go up.
And so what is PPL doing that's gotten a lot of attention, public attention?
They're phasing it in. Rather than having it hit you all at once, they're allowing you to spread that increase out over time and pay ahead, and offering you a 6% interest rate on that amount that you pay ahead. Now, I don't know where else you can get 6% interest.
Well, I will tell you, my wife and I have had this discussion, and we're going to go ahead and do it if we haven't done it. So if you're watching, because I agree with you. I think this is a pretty good deal because someone said the rates could go up as much as a third if you don't. Is that a crazy number?
That's been sort of a number that's been widely out there, and I think that people are expecting that kind of a rate increase in PP&L. I've seen lower numbers for PICO, and the rate caps came off a couple of years ago in the Duquesne service territory.
And the rates didn't go up.
They did not go up, and in fact, competitive suppliers came in, and they have half the electricity load. The competitive suppliers are servicing half the electricity load in the Duquesne service territory. So once the caps came off, we did see competition kick in.
Now, I know I'm not going to understand this, but I'm sure you're going to be able to explain it, especially to our viewers. Explain this business in this legislation that was passed just recently by the legislature, signed into law by Governor Rendell, in which electric companies, I'll put it that way, power companies are supposed to buy energy at the cheapest possible price. What does that mean? Why should our viewers care about that?
Well, when the rates come off, they're going to be charging really the real price that they pay for electricity are going to be reflected in our rates.
Right.
So one way to keep down rates is to force them to find new ways of actually procuring electricity.
At a lower rate.
At a lower rate. Maybe longer term.
I got it.
Maybe longer term contracts. You know, rather than just going out every day into the spot market, which is very volatile. There will be more stability in prices if they're able to go out and
now,
make
finally, someone explained this to me.
long-range plans. Yes.
I have heard this, and I haven't had it quite explained in that way. But that seems to make some. Now, that passed the legislature, right? That's a done deal.
That's a done deal.
And that was a consensus. I mean, it's Republicans and Democrats all came together on that?
Yeah. The whole big bill that passed right in the last few days was very bipartisan. It passed the House by 187 to 4 or something.
Wow,
189 to 4. It was amazing.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back with Jan. I want to ask her about all the conservation stuff that was passed in some legislation before the legislature went home for the summer recess. Back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Highmark Blue Shield, changing the way health plans work for business with a variety of plan options for employers and more choices for employees. Information is available at highmark.com. Have a greater hand in your company's health. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by PennFUTURE, where we believe that every environmental victory grows the economy, and by the Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School, bringing educational innovation and freedom to the children of Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to the program with Jan Jarrett from PennFUTURE. We're chatting about the energy and conservation bills that were passed, some last spring before the legislature ran on recess, some just before they went home for the fall recess. Jan, I want to turn to something now that has to do with the $650 million in bonds that will be issued, and the state government will get involved in alternative and all kinds of renewable energy sources. And I'm going to let you get into the details. Why would you argue that that's important for the state to do?
You know, I want to put this into some context. That piece of legislation, plus the energy conservation legislation and the biofuels legislation, constitutes kind of a new kind of an economic development package. And it's the kind of economic development that doesn't use up resources, but it actually helps clean up things. It helps people to be frugal. It's a kind of sustainable sort of economic development program that we can all be really proud of, and that Pennsylvania is going to be a leader in. It's going to incentivize things like solar power. That's one of the biggest things in the $650 million. For people like you and me, or small businesses. It will incentivize more wind development.
Wind and solar, and your argument would be when the debate was going on about passing it, that it's related to job creation too.
Very much so.
That it's just not about sort of, it combines both good environmental practices and job creation.
Yeah, and it's the kind of jobs that we really need. Skilled labor, you know, plumbers, pipe fitters, welders, all kinds of skilled laborers skilled jobs that pay a good wage, a living wage, can't be exported. They're going to stay here. They're going to help keep the money in our economies, in the local economies, plus help clean the air, fight global warming, and help us all save money. I mean, it's really a package that has put us on a path. It's the medicine that we need right now.
Yeah.
You know, in the midst of the economic crisis that we've got here, we've got some real good news in Pennsylvania, and we've got a bright future in those particular industries that we really need to grow. I mean, both presidential candidates have as one of their economic development planks investing in these kinds of renewable energy technologies, because they know it's where we need to go. It gets us off of foreign oil. It makes us energy independent. It helps to fight global warming, which is a huge challenge for us.
And tell me when this, I mean, the $650 million was passed last spring, but nothing has been spent yet. It's going to obviously take time to sell the bonds and to get the program.
Yes.
When's the program?
We are expecting to see the programs start to come together and be available to the public in March.
Now, when we say available to public, does that mean like corporations and nonprofits and all can apply for grants and begin to do that work? Is it, how about, can local governments do it too?
There's a website, a link in the DEP website where you can sign up to
Department of Environmental Protection.
Where you can sign up to get notification of when the programs come online. There's a specific one for municipalities. There's a specific one for just homeowners.
There you go.
So if you're interested in putting solar on your condo, you can sign up and get notification that the program is ready. It'll pay up to 35% of the cost.
Thanks for the update.
Okay.
We'll see you next week for another edition. And by the way, stay well.